All right, now we're going to get into more specifics for each kind of artist that you could imagine, and it will, well, maybe not that you could imagine, but that we're going to cover tonight. We're going to start with visual artists, and like I said, I'm going to cover a lot in the visual artist section, just because a lot of it applies to many of us. So make sure that you're still tuned in, even if you are in another artistic category. All right, so in addition to the 4 sort of common green puzzle pieces, here are some specific puzzle pieces that you might include in your artist resume. Exhibitions, commissions, collections. That's sort of our, exhibitions is our bread and butter, but also commissions and collections can be in that as well. Press coverage or bibliography, published works, related experience, lectures, workshops, presentations, etc., things where you're talking. Curatorial projects, and then gallery affiliations or client lists. And any of these categories might be abbreviated to selected to meet a length requirement of a resume. Because again, we're talking resume, so you're going to have to keep it on the shorter side, which means you might need to abbreviate this depending on how much you've done. And if you abbreviate, let's say you have a lot of exhibitions and you want to abbreviate it, you would just say selected exhibitions. And then whoever the reader is knows, okay, I'm just seeing a highlight reel. That's true for all of us. So selected performances, selected recordings, selected whatever it is, you can abbreviate it that way. All right, so exhibitions. This should be close to the top. It doesn't have to be first by any means. You might have like your awards section first or something like that. But if that's really impressive, but exhibitions often does come first after contact info. If you don't have an education section right there, it makes sense for it to be on the first page. You're going to include the title of the exhibition, the venue, city, state, if there was a catalog, and if there was a juror, especially if it's someone who's like known or notable. And then if it's lengthy, you can have subcategories there too for like, so for instance, like solo exhibitions, collaborative projects, group exhibitions might be some subcategories you might have. So here's an example of one that is not divided out into subcategories, but notes, because they do have solo exhibitions, so they want to make sure to say that. And so what they put first is whether it's a solo exhibition, a 2-person exhibition, or in this case, if they don't say anything, then we assume that it is a group exhibition. So they have that first, and then they go on to the information for the exhibition, which is a great way to do it. Okay, so bibliography or press is things that's been written about you and your work. And again, this applies to lots of different types of artists. If someone's reviewed you or written about you, a blog post, a periodical article, whatever it is, this is where you would put it. So bibliography is for things that's written about you, not things that you've written. You can divide it into categories if you need to. If you've had just a whole lot written about you, I mean, that's always the dream, right? But if that's happened for you, then yeah, absolutely split it up. And then you can format each entry like a works cited entry, where you have the author's name first, and then you put the title, the periodical title, and then all the other publication information. So something like this. Or even preferable, this example, oops, it went behind, but you can see here it includes links. If something has a link that is in your bibliography, include the link, because if people are interested in you, they will click a link, whereas they might not type it into Google to find it themselves. So absolutely include links when that's available for either your bibliography or your publications even. Include that in your CV or resume. Published works are things that you have written. So this might be called published works. It might also be called publications. So again, common for a lot of us. If you've written something that is related to your art realm, that would be an appropriate thing to include on your artist's resume. And then you'll follow the same format here, but you'll just leave off the author's name because it's understood that it's you. But all the other information can be the same. All right, related experience, anything in your realm that is relevant. So if you have work in the art world, that would be great to put here. I also had its own curatorial experience as its own category, but maybe you had one experience where you were working as a curator, but you had another experience where you're working as a juror, and then you had another, whatever it is. If you only have like one of each of a lot of random things, you can sort of bring them together under the related experience category. Or if you have a lot of teaching experience, you might have that be its own category, but if you only have one example, you might put it with those other things as a related experience category, if that makes sense. So divide it into subcategories as you need, but if you only have a few things, you might just lump them together into a related experience section. All right, gallery affiliations. Not a lot of us have these. You'll only list the current ones. So if you had one in the past, you're not going to have it on there, sadly. Just the ones that you're currently working with. And it's usually either at or near the very end of the resume. So it's probably going to come last unless you have references. That would be the very last thing. If you're a designer, you can include a client list in its place. So same place. So here's a couple examples. I think, yeah, here we go. So it just look like that, pretty simple, or a client list. All right. So when we combine the common ones with the special ones, the green with the orange puzzle pieces, we might get an outline that looks like this. Now, this is the one, maybe less than 1% of y'all that would have an outline that looks like this, because no one has something for every single category. And one of you is probably like, I do. And going to tell me about it. But I could probably say with pretty much, a lot of assurance, none of us have something for every single one of these potential categories. So what you're going to do is when you get the handout, you're going to look through all of them and be like, have I done anything like that? Have I done anything like that? And you're going to forget that category exists if you don't have anything for it, not put it on your resume at all, and then just pick the ones that are relevant to you. So what might that look like? Okay, so name and contact info, obviously we're going to include. I'm going to pretend I'm a visual artist right now that's going through these categories, deciding what I want to include in my resume. Education. Okay, well, I did 3 years as a biochem major before I decided that's not what I wanted to do, and self-trained as an artist. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that off my resume because my work doesn't have anything to do with that anyway. Awards, honors, grants, fellowships, residencies. No, I had, I got a grant through ARP. And then I had a fellowship right after I stopped the biochem thing. I got a fellowship. Exhibitions, commissions, and collections. Don't have any commissions or collections, but I do have quite a bit of exhibitions. That's where I really shine. And actually I can split that up into solo and group subcategories because I do have 2 solo exhibitions and 4 group. Press coverage or bibliography or things that I've written, published works, don't have anything like that yet. So don't need that category. Related experience, again, let's say Bath and Body Works. No, that's not relevant here. So I'm going to go ahead and lose that category too. Lectures, workshops, presentations, artist talks. Actually, I met this artist person and they wanted someone to talk on a panel for working artists and how I make it happen. So professional development, an invited talk. Cool. Curatorial projects. Yeah, I did something like that with a friend of mine. We curated a little small exhibition at the local gallery. Gallery affiliations. No, I don't have anything like that. References. I don't need to put it on there right now. So this is what I've got. Okay, so that's what it would look like for all of us who are going through the list of possible categories and sort of deciding what to include and not to include. So then for this fictional person, this is what they would be left with. Then they would consider, how do I want to order this? Okay, well, I already said exhibitions are really where I shine. So I'm going to move that up over grants and fellowships. And then I'm going to move, I'm really proud of that curated exhibit that I did. So I'm going to put that above invited talks. So this is my completed outline. And then I just get to work filling them in with everything that I've done. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that will help you guys get started doing that. And we'll go through all the possible categories for different types of CVs and resumes too, but this is relevant for everybody. Okay, so this is a real artist resume. So you can see what it might look like. So name and contact info, name is big, great. Contact info is taking up only a couple lines. Education is in the art realm, so it makes sense that she put it first here and includes it. Residency, she split up from recognition and awards, which is fine. She could choose to combine these, but she has 2 for each, which is perfectly fine. Exhibitions is all one combined category because there's only 3, so it doesn't make sense to split it up. And then press coverage, she combines with publications because she only has 1 publication and she has 2 items that are press coverage. So she combined it so that it would be a big enough section, perfectly fine. And then the last thing is collections. Now, if I got this from one of you and we were going to meet for a one-on-one, I would question the choice of putting collections last. I might say I might move it up after exhibitions. But besides that, this looks really great. She put the years on the right, perfectly fine. Again, it's still very legible, very easy to skim. So I don't have a problem with that at all. Okay, so now let's move on to artist CV. So let's say you're the exact same artist as the fictional one that I just sort of presented to you, but you're asked for a CV. Okay, well, your CV might look exactly the same as your resume. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, because you might just not have much more to put on there, but there are some more categories that you might add, and you can make every single category's entries more comprehensive if you've got things to add. So if you've been limiting yourself, now's the time you don't have to limit yourself, okay? So you might, and as you are not limiting yourself, that might also mean that you need to break up some of these longer categories into subcategories, depending on how many entries you have. So do that and then see if any of these other categories work for you and are relevant to what you're applying for. So professional experience might be something that you put higher up in the CV, because you might be applying for something that is more teaching related. If that's the case, teaching experience would come before exhibitions even, right? Because that is more relevant to what you're applying for. Or if you're applying for an academic job, academic appointments would be more relevant than exhibitions. So that would come first. Professional affiliations and professional service usually come towards the end of a CV. So if you're a member in any society, if you've served in any way for any art related society, that would go there. If you have any technical abilities, expertise, or skills, any consultancies that you've done, exhibitions you've juried, or languages. So it might look like this, like a unicorn artist CV might look like this. So you can see I've sort of wedged in teaching experience there and professional affiliations and professional service down towards the end. Again, references and gallery affiliations, almost always references is last, and the gallery affiliations would go last if references is there, but the professional affiliations and service makes sense right before that. All right, so here is that CV we took a peek at earlier. You can see at the beginning that there's a little bit of biographical information there. And I see people do this sometimes. This is often done by galleries. So like if you submitted a CV to a gallery or an artist resume to a gallery and you had your contact information on there, they would take your contact information off and they would put something like this in its place. So this is a publicly available CV. So this person has chosen to put this information there, but that's not something you would typically put on your CV that you're submitting to something. It would be your contact information there. So we have name and contact information, education, exhibitions are split up quite a bit. So this is a very established artist, so solo, group, and then we have curated exhibitions on here on this, what, 4th page we're on now. Related employment is that professional experience category. and then professional service right there. Awards, published works, as she's split up into catalogs and published writing, lectures, and then collections, and a very lengthy bibliography. So you can see this is long, right? It's okay to have a long CV if you've got the stuff to back it up. Now, I would say the one critique for this particular one is, like, for instance, like under awards and scholarships, like when you're this established, things like being on the university honor roll could probably fall off your CV. So things like that, where it's like, if you're this established, things that you did as a younger artist, or even like if you went to college for it, things that you did in college can start to fall off as more impressive things take its place.